He feels it, even if he's silent, even if he's distant, even if he pretends he doesn't know what this is. There's a fire building inside him. It's not just desire for your body. It's a craving for something deeper, something he can't explain, but he feels when you walk into the room, when your name comes up in his thoughts, when your energy touches his soul. Before the union, he wants to be seen, he wants to be safe, he wants to be met, fully, truthfully, without pressure. But he's afraid of that want, because if he admits it, everything must change. Have you felt like he's holding something in, something sacred? Drop your insight in the comments. Your awareness might help someone unlock their own journey. What he desires before he can say yes. There's a moment in the twin flame journey that no one prepares you for. It's the quiet before the union, a strange tension between two souls that know something is coming, but neither can fully speak it. And this is where his desire becomes a force you can feel, but rarely understand, because he doesn't say it, he doesn't confess it, he barely even shows it. But he wants something, not in the way the world defines want. Not just touch, not just closeness. What he longs for is much deeper. Permission. Permission to be seen without the need to explain. To be vulnerable without losing respect. To feel fully without being forced to act before he's ready. Before he can say yes to union, he needs to feel that he can arrive as he is. Not as the man you imagine, not as the version of him you're waiting for, but as the soul he's still remembering how to live in. And that's hard for him, because the world doesn't teach men to be seen this way. The divine masculine was conditioned to perform, provide, protect, but not to feel. So when he starts to feel the weight of your energy, the magnetism, the spiritual intimacy, he pulls away. Not because he doesn't want it, but because he doesn't know how to hold it. His desire is not weak. It's powerful, but it's buried under years of inner walls and emotional armor. He wants to be met, not just with love, but with space. Space to process, to breathe, to collapse, if necessary, without being judged. That's why, right before the union, so many masculines go silent, confused, even cold. Because he's finally feeling everything and it overwhelms him. But don't let his distance fool you. He's not disconnected. He's searching, not for you. He's already found you. He's searching for himself in this. Because the real yes to union isn't him choosing you. It's him choosing to be the man who can meet you where your soul already stands. And that takes time. So what does he desire, really? He desires to be trusted. He desires to not be rushed. He desires to feel safe in the fire of this connection, instead of feeling like he has to run from the flames. You don't need to pull him in. You don't need to chase his answer. Your job is to stay anchored in your own truth, because that's the field his soul is watching. He will say yes when that desire becomes stronger than his fear. And when it does, he won't whisper it. He'll move toward you with a heart that's finally ready to stay. The masculine longs for freedom, but fears it too. He wants to be free, truly free, not just from responsibilities or expectations, but from the weight he's carried for lifetimes. The masks, the pressure, the fear of failing, of feeling, of falling. But here's the contradiction. He also fears the very freedom he longs for. Because true freedom doesn't just liberate, it reveals. And once he's free to feel, to be, to show up as himself, he can no longer hide behind the roles that once kept him safe. This is the crossroads many divine masculines reach just before union. They crave a love that makes them feel alive, but they're terrified of what that love asks them to let go of. Because this kind of connection doesn't fit inside the old version of him. It demands a new man, one who's rooted in soul, not ego. And that shift, it's massive. Freedom in this context means responsibility. To feel everything, to respond with truth, to no longer use distance or delay as an excuse. And while he wants that, he also doesn't trust himself to carry it yet. You may have noticed it. He pulls you close with his energy, then vanishes. He opens his heart halfway, then builds a wall the next day. He says things that reveal depth, then pretends none of it ever happened. It's not manipulation, it's confusion. A soul trapped between the call to rise and the fear of falling apart on the way there. Because being with you means he can no longer numb, no longer delay, no longer pretend that surface level love is enough. You woke up something inside him, a longing to be whole, a desire to step into the unknown. But with that awakening comes grief. Grief for who he used to be. Grief for the parts of him he must shed. Grief for the safety he found in playing small. And freedom, true, energetic freedom, is not given. It's earned through courage. That's what he's building right now, not walls, but inner strength. not because he doesn't want to be with you, but because he knows that once he steps into this, he can't do it halfway. He longs for the version of love that sets him free. But first, he has to free himself from within. So if he's distant, don't assume he doesn't care. If he's slow, don't assume he's resisting you. He's confronting the part of him that's terrified that real freedom will demand more than he's ready to give. But he will get there because the fire inside him is growing. And soon, the fear of staying the same will become louder than the fear of becoming new. His desire to be seen without judgment. He doesn't just want love, he wants to be seen, not admired, not idealized. Seen. And this, perhaps, is the most sacred and terrifying desire of the divine masculine. Because to be truly seen in all of his depth, his flaws, his fears, is the one thing he craves the most and fears just as deeply. Why? Because for most of his life, being seen came with consequences. When he was vulnerable, he was told to toughen up. When he cried, he was told to hide it. When he hesitated, he was told he was weak. So he learned to mask, to perform, to protect. But then you came in, with your energy, with your gaze, with your knowing. And suddenly, he couldn't hide, not from you, not from himself. You didn't just see the surface, you saw through him. You noticed the contradiction in his words. You felt the love he wouldn't admit. You recognized the soul behind the armor. And instead of that feeling liberating him at first, it shook him. Because now, the one thing he's been trying to avoid for years, emotional exposure, was already happening without his permission. But here's the truth. He wants that exposure. He needs it. Because deep down, all his posturing, all his silence, all his push-pull behavior is the outer expression of a soul that's asking, can you still love me when I'm not strong? Will you stay if you see my shadows? Am I still enough when I'm undone? His greatest desire is not perfection, it's acceptance, to be met in the raw, in the real, in the moments when he's figuring it out and has nothing polished to offer. But the only way he'll ever feel safe being seen is if you don't turn your gaze into pressure. He doesn't need your spiritual expectations. He doesn't need your silent demands to hurry up. He needs your space, the kind that says, I see you, and I don't need to fix you. Because only then can he begin to lower the mask, not to perform for love, but to rest in it. When he knows he can be seen without being judged, when he feels that your truth doesn't ask him to be more than he is in this moment, something inside him softens. He starts to trust the energy again. He starts to return, not out of pressure, but out of relief. So if you're wondering what he desires before the union, it's this: the freedom to be witnessed without the fear of being pushed away. And when he finally feels that, that's when the bridge is built. Not from words, but from presence. The feminine awakens what he forgot he needed. He didn't know he needed this, not until she showed up. He thought he needed peace, but not this kind. He thought he wanted closeness, but not this deep. He thought he was whole, until her presence mirrored every piece that was still fragmented. Because the divine feminine doesn't come into his life to complete him. She comes to awaken him, to remind him of everything he forgot he was allowed to feel. And that awakening is beautiful. But it's not soft, it's not quiet, it's not comfortable. It shakes his world. Because now the life he built on numbness no longer fits. The distractions don't satisfy. The logic doesn't explain the pull. And the freedom he thought he wanted without intimacy feels like emptiness. She activates something ancient in him, a longing that doesn't belong to this world, a craving for connection that isn't about ownership or validation or performance. It's about truth. She brings a frequency that speaks to the part of him that always knew there was more. More than survival, more than ambition, more than surface level love. And that part of him, the one that remembers, begins to stir. But with that awakening comes grief, because now he sees how much of himself he had abandoned. He feels the cost of being disconnected. He realizes that the person he was before her was only a fraction of who he truly is. She awakens the desire to be whole, not to impress, not to chase, but to finally meet her, not with potential, but with presence. Yet here's the paradox. As much as he needs this awakening, he didn't ask for it. And so part of him resists. Not because he doesn't want her, but because she brings a truth he can't unsee, a frequency he can't escape, and a standard of soul connection that demands his full self. She doesn't demand it with words. She embodies it, and that embodiment becomes a silent invitation. If you want to meet me here, come as your truth. And he feels that. So what does he do? He might run. He might ghost. He might act confused. But beneath all of that is a desire he doesn't even know how to name. The desire to remember himself through her light. You didn't awaken just to hold his hand. You awakened to hold the frequency, and through that you became the catalyst for his soul's return. He may not tell you, he may not even realize it consciously, but something in him shifted the day your presence entered his life. Something woke up, and that awakening is what will keep pulling him toward union, even if his feet hesitate. Because it's not her love he's afraid of. It's who he has to become in order to receive it. And she already is. Why desire isn't always physical. When we hear the word desire, the mind often goes to the body, to touch, to attraction, to passion. And yes, he desires her physically. He feels her presence even when she's not there. He dreams of her, sometimes without understanding why. He can feel her energy like a pulse underneath his skin. But that's not the full story. Because the deepest male desire before union isn't about the body. It's about what the body can't hold. It's about soul. You see, when the masculine is truly awakening, he begins to notice that what he craves isn't just her physical presence, but her frequency. The way she echoes truth, the way she walks in self-respect, the way her energy makes him feel safe to feel, even when he doesn't have the words yet. It's not lust, it's longing. A longing for something he's never quite experienced, but instantly recognizes in her. And that longing confuses him, because it doesn't follow the scripts he's been taught. This isn't about conquest. It's not about performance. It's not about being good enough for her on the surface. It's about meeting her where she is, energetically, which means dropping the mask, releasing control, being seen, and that is far more intimate than anything physical. He wants to merge not just bodies, but fields, to be in her presence and feel peace without needing to fill the space, to be close without pressure, to exist finally without armor. But again, this desire terrifies him, because when you want something this deeply and you don't believe you're ready to hold it, you either collapse or run. That's why so many divine masculines pull away right before union. It's not because they don't feel, it's because they feel too much and don't yet trust themselves to hold it. They fear that if they step into that kind of intimacy, they'll lose control, lose themselves, lose the illusion of safety they built over years. But that illusion is already crumbling, because the feminine's presence is awakening something no one else ever could. His capacity for spiritual union. And once that desire awakens, not just for closeness, but for wholeness, he can't go back. He may retreat, he may delay, but something in him has already shifted. So if he desires you and still pulls away, don't assume it's rejection. It may be the beginning of his return, not to you, but to himself. Because before he can come into union with you, he must first reunite with the parts of him that are finally learning what real intimacy is. And once he does, desire won't be something he hides. It'll be something he meets you in, not from the body alone, but from the soul. He wants to be met in truth. At the core of everything he does, the silence, the distance, the inner turmoil, there's one unspoken desire driving it all. He wants to be met in truth, not in expectation, not in pressure, not in fantasy, in truth. He wants to be loved without performance, seen without distortion, held not by your hands, but by your energy. Because the masculine is tired of pretending, tired of hiding behind roles and obligations, tired of carrying the weight of being strong when all he truly wants is to be real. And that's what your presence offers him. You are not just a partner, you are a portal to the truth he's been avoiding and to the version of himself he's been silently craving to become. Before union, he wants to know, can I show up as I am and still be chosen, not as the man you idealized, but as the soul you already feel beneath the layers. And for that to happen, he must first feel the field of safety that only truth can hold, not the truth you speak, but the truth you live. When you stop needing him to change to meet your timeline, and instead become an anchor for your own frequency, you become the mirror he can finally face. He doesn't want your perfection. He wants your presence. And that presence, rooted, clear, aligned, tells his nervous system something he's never heard before. It's safe to become. That's what he's been seeking, not just love, but the love that doesn't disappear when he's not yet finished evolving. So he pulls away to test the field. He delays to see if your energy holds. He wrestles, not with you, but with himself. And your greatest power is not in pulling him back, but in not abandoning yourself. Because the moment he feels that your love doesn't ask him to be more than what he is, and yet still invites him into his highest, he begins to move, not in fear, not in confusion, but in truth. He wants to be met, not where he's been, but where he's going. And the more you meet yourself there first, the more you call him in, not with force, but with frequency. He desires a love that expands him, but doesn't demand him. A love that challenges him to grow, but doesn't shame him when he's slow. A love that sees the soul through the silence and stays aligned anyway. That is what awakens him. That is what prepares him. That is what unlocks the final yes. Because before union ever becomes real, he needs to meet someone who shows him truth is not something to fear, it's something to return home to. And that someone is you.